congrats on the new season of Ellis and the
Thank
Raptors.
you.
So what was your mindset going into it this season and just with the rebrand and everything? I feel like it shows a lot of growth.
To be honest, it was about growth and
Yeah.
elevation. The podcast was, at that point, 15 seasons deep, Webby Award winning, 7 years in the making.
Yeah.
We feel like we had gotten to the point where it was a little stale for us. And when I say for us, we had got a different response from the people.
Yeah.
For us, we were like, people don't want to hear about us and our stories no more. We did Love Against the World tour. We were ready to go out with a bang. And then on tour, we were asking people, what y'all think? And they were like, that podcast better go nowhere. And we were like, are you serious?
Yeah.
And then we found out that people had created groups from the live shows. Couples who had sat next to each other and bonded, they kept in contact with each other because,
know that.
yeah, a couple of the dudes created groups and they included me in the groups. It's like, yo, this is our dead ass group for dudes who feel like they need a brother. They know they found a group of
Like a
like-minded
brotherhood
people
there.
to
Oh,
talk
that's
about marriage
cool.
and then not be disparaging information they get. So at that point, we were like, we need to create something for after. Oh, wait a minute. What about Ellis Ever
Yeah,
After? And then that's how the new podcast
Yeah.
came.
And I'll credit him the name too. Devale came up with that. It was clever. I was like, I like that. It had like a ring to it.
It's
Yeah.
so
it
cute.
made sense. Yeah.
Because you two are so authentic and you actually love what you do. I feel like people can see that. So you probably don't.
That means a lot.
You love it so much. You probably don't realize how much of an influence you have on people
We
in
don't.
general and couples.
Thank
Like, look
you.
at that.
Yeah, we really
I don't
Yeah.
think we do, and that's why it was so amazing when we did the live shows, because it put us in the space where you can tangibly in those spaces feel
Yeah.
the love and the connection, and like Devale said, getting like-minded individuals together in one space was really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And then we'll bump into random people at random places, whether we're traveling or even the supermarket. And, you know, I had one woman come up to me and she said, you guys single-handedly saved my marriage.
Yeah.
You taught me how to speak to my partner. We both learned how to communicate better.
Yeah.
I mean, we have countless stories of people who either email us as a listener letter for the podcast or just
Yeah.
give us our flowers when they see us. It's been really amazing to see how the podcast went from just Devale and I
Just joking.
Yeah.
joking around, talking about what it's like to be a millennial married couple, and then here we are.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
Ellis Ever After 7 years later.
Yeah. And you two bring such a fresh view on marriage too, because you see how the world is and how people make up
Yeah.
all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like when people go and watch your podcast, they kind of get inspo again. Okay, like this is what marriage could be, you
Yeah.
know. So that's so great as well.
For us,
Yeah.
it was not so much about being examples, but
Yeah.
just to show people, like, you're not alone. Khadeen and I are working hard in this marriage. We have our struggles, but we have a lot of fun. And we're raising our kids, and it's gone from a conversation between a man and a woman to a conversation from a man to his parents, a man to her parents, a woman to our parents, and then us to our kids. It's become multi-generational. So Deadass Podcast has grown from a just conversation between husband and wife to a multi-generational conversation.
Yeah, that's
I
a really
love
good
that.
point, because we were able to, you know, scratch the surface and then dive deeper into conversations that really taught us to appreciate but also learn who we are based off of
Yeah.
who our parents were.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Yeah.
now we find our parents wanting to have conversations amongst themselves
Yeah.
about their
Yeah.
own relationship.
Yeah.
That's
you know,
great.
so there's
Yeah.
a power in that, because we think about the disadvantage that we were at when we first got married, because we felt like there wasn't a lot of information about marriage. There
true.
wasn't many conversations being had. A lot of times people kept things to themselves. And though I do believe that there's power in privacy within your relationship, sometimes it's
Absolutely.
nice to feel like you're not the only one
not alone.
going through something. You know, this situation is not an anomaly. Like, oh my gosh, you're dealing with it too, and you guys too. So like, we can start the discourse together, and also maybe in a public forum.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's and you said like even your parents too. They see that and they get.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think
That
in
really
the
touched
past year,
Yeah.
my conversations between my dad and her mom have changed a lot. I've learned a lot about her by quote unquote interviewing her mom and dad.
Oh, okay.
But then we went back to Jamaica, we went back to St. Vincent, and I saw her parents' upbringing.
Yeah.
And what it did was it gave me a lot more empathy into who they were as people, how they raised her and her siblings. So now I understand. These things trigger you not because you have an issue with me. These things trigger you because this is the way you were brought up, and these are the things that have caused you a little bit of trauma. So I learned so much about her, but I've also learned about myself in talking to them.